Inter Miami have successfully signed Casemiro on a free transfer following his departure from Manchester United. However, the celebrations have been quickly interrupted as Major League Soccer have initiated a formal tampering review. The signing was announced. The investigation was announced minutes later. And the club that already holds the record for the largest fine in MLS history is now facing a second major disciplinary process in 5 years over a transfer that, on the surface, involves a player who was a free agent. This is the full story of how Inter Miami signed one of the best defensive midfielders of his generation, why LA Galaxy filed a formal complaint the moment they did it, and what the MLS Discovery Priority system is, the rule at the center of everything. Before the investigation, before the tampering allegation, before LA Galaxy filed their complaint, the signing itself is significant enough to lead any sports news cycle without the controversy attached. Casemiro is a 5-time Champions League winner with Real Madrid. He is a World Cup winner with Brazil from 2002. No, let me correct that. He is a multiple Champions League winner and one of the most decorated defensive midfielders of the modern era. He spent the 2022-23 and 2023-24 seasons at Manchester United, where his performances were broadly considered the one consistent bright spot in an otherwise turbulent period for the club. His contract expired this summer at the end of the 2025-26 season, and he became a free agent. For Inter Miami, already home to Lionel Messi and Rodrigo de Paul from the Argentine World Cup squad, and now adding a player of Casemiro's caliber, this is a statement of ambition that goes far beyond the MLS regular season. The Brazilian World Cup players who featured at the 2026 World Cup are returning to their clubs, and Inter Miami is positioning itself as the destination of choice for world-class talent at the peak or near the peak of their careers. The Casemiro signing is entirely consistent with that strategy. The investigation that followed it is entirely consistent with Inter Miami's history. To understand the tampering allegation, you need to understand a rule that most football fans outside the United States have never encountered, the MLS Discovery Priority system. By listing a player, that team holds the exclusive right to begin negotiations first without competition from other MLS clubs. In practical terms, any MLS club can add a player's name to their discovery list, which gives them exclusive rights to approach and negotiate with that player before any other MLS team. The player does not have to agree to anything. They do not have to be in active negotiations. The club simply lists them, and from that moment, no other MLS club can make contact with that player without first acquiring the discovery priority rights from the club that holds them. If a club wants to sign a player on the discovery list of another club that has higher discovery priority on the player, it may offer that club $50,000 in general allocation money in exchange for the right to sign the player. The club holding the discovery priority then has 5 days to either accept the $50,000 and pass on the right to sign the player, or use those rights themselves and make the player a formal offer. LA Galaxy has discovery priority over Casemiro, forcing Inter Miami to acquire the player's rights from the Western Conference club. The allegation is not that Inter Miami signed a player they had no right to sign. It is that they may have made contact with Casemiro before they had acquired the right to do so. And in MLS, that specific sequence, contact before rights acquisition, is the definition of tampering. Sources confirmed to ESPN that the LA Galaxy filed a tampering claim against Inter Miami to MLS regarding contact with Casemiro without first acquiring the player's discovery priority. The allegation is specific and the timeline is the key. The timeline is key to the MLS probe, with the league not specifying whether the allegation concerned talks Miami may have held with Casemiro directly before acquiring his discovery rights, or the acquisition of those rights itself. That ambiguity matters enormously, because the two possible scenarios carry very different weights. If Inter Miami contacted Casemiro directly before acquiring LA Galaxy's discovery priority, that is a straightforward tampering violation. They made contact with a player whose negotiation rights belong to another club without permission. If the allegation is about the acquisition of those rights itself, the manner or timing in which Inter Miami obtained LA Galaxy's discovery priority, the case is more complex and potentially involves questions about whether the settlement terms between the two clubs were themselves conducted properly. The league is actively reviewing allegations of tampering made by LA Galaxy, who held the initial discovery rights for the Brazilian midfielder, casting a significant shadow over his highly anticipated arrival in the United States. MLS issued a formal statement confirming the investigation. Major League Soccer is reviewing a tampering allegation against Inter Miami CF. The league is gathering all relevant information and will refrain from further comment until the review is complete. Here is the detail that makes this situation more complicated than a standard dispute between two clubs. While Inter Miami CF and the LA Galaxy have reached a settlement for the Discovery Priority to sign Casemiro, the terms will be released upon conclusion of the tampering investigation. A settlement between the two clubs has been reached. LA Galaxy and Inter Miami have agreed on compensation for the Discovery Priority. The transfer itself is proceeding. Casemiro is an Inter Miami player, and yet the MLS investigation is continuing regardless of the settlement, because the question the league is investigating is not whether Inter Miami ultimately acquired the rights properly. It is whether they made contact before they were permitted to. The settlement resolves the civil dispute between the two clubs. It does not resolve the league's disciplinary interest in whether the process was followed correctly from the beginning. Although the two clubs have now agreed on a settlement, the tampering probe remains active. Inter Miami can celebrate the signing. Casemiro can train at the club's facility. Inter Miami play their first match following the World Cup break on Wednesday against Chicago Fire. While Lionel Messi and Rodrigo de Paul remain inactive following their international duties, fans will eagerly await to see if Casemiro will feature. Meanwhile, the club must await the official findings of the MLS investigation, which could result in further substantial penalties. Context matters in disciplinary cases, and Inter Miami's context with MLS is not good. Inter Miami have faced severe disciplinary action from the league previously. In 2021, MLS discovered the club had violated salary cap rules regarding the signing of Blaise Matuidi. Consequently, Inter Miami were fined a record $2 million, while managing owner Jorge Mas received an additional $250,000 penalty. The club were also docked over $2.27 million in allocation money, highlighting a concerning history of administrative breaches for the franchise. The Matuidi case established that Inter Miami is a club willing to push the boundaries of MLS's administrative rules, and that MLS is willing to respond with the largest financial penalties in the league's history when those boundaries are crossed. The Casemiro investigation arrives with that prior finding on the record. In any disciplinary process, a prior violation of the same category of rule, improper handling of player acquisition procedures, is an aggravating factor. It is the difference between a first offense and a repeat offense. It is also worth noting that the Matuidi case involved a free agent signed without proper salary cap compliance, strikingly similar in structure to the current allegation that a free agent was approached without proper Discovery Priority acquisition. Inter Miami's pattern of acquiring high-profile free agents and facing MLS scrutiny over the process is not a coincidence. It is a documented pattern that the league is now examining for the second time in 5 years. MLS tampering investigations do not follow a fixed public timeline. The league gathers information, interviews relevant parties, reviews communications records, and issues a determination when the review is complete. Based on the Matuidi precedent, the range of potential outcomes is wide. At the lighter end, a formal warning, a small fine, and a requirement to disclose the full terms of the Galaxy settlement. At the heavier end, given the prior Matuidi violation on the record, a substantial fine, allocation money deductions, and potentially draft pick penalties that affect Inter Miami's squad-building capacity in future windows. The one outcome that appears unlikely is that Casemiro's registration is voided. The settlement with LA Galaxy is complete, the Discovery Priority has been transferred, and the player is registered. MLS investigations of this type have historically resulted in financial and allocation penalties rather than the reversal of completed transfers. What MLS has yet to specify, and what the investigation will determine, is whether Inter Miami contacted Casemiro before acquiring the Discovery Priority, which club personnel were involved in those communications, and whether the conduct represents a deliberate circumvention of league rules or an administrative timing error. The difference between those two characterizations is the difference between a large fine and a historically unprecedented sanction. Inter Miami signed Casemiro. LA Galaxy filed a tampering complaint. MLS launched a formal investigation. The two clubs settled the Discovery Priority dispute. The investigation continued anyway, and a club that paid a record $2 million fine for the Matuidi signing 5 years ago is now the subject of a structurally similar MLS inquiry for the second time. Casemiro is at the club. Messi and DePaul are returning from World Cup duty. Inter Miami's ambition is undeniable and the quality of their squad is genuine. The question the investigation will answer is whether that ambition is being pursued within the rules or around them, and whether MLS is prepared to respond with penalties significant enough to change the club's behavior. Drop a comment below telling us your reaction. Do you think Inter Miami deliberately tampered, or is this a timing dispute that got out of hand? And do you think the MLS Discovery Priority system makes sense in a world where European clubs make contact with players months before their contracts expire without any consequence? Subscribe and turn on notifications for every major transfer story and league investigation update as the summer window develops. And share this video with every MLS fan and football supporter who needs to understand exactly what the Discovery Priority system is and why it matters.